recognize that riff? If you do, you're probably about the same age I am. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but this is Little Latin Loopy Loo. It was written by Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers. They were two singers that, well, they did You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling, that was their biggest hit. But they had a hit with Little Latin Loopy Loo. But the first time I heard it was when Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels put it out, and I had the 45. I had bought the 45, and I thought it was one of the best rock records I'd ever heard. You know, it was a great song. And if you were in a band back then, now this was the late 60s, might have been around 65 or mid to late 60s, and if you were in a band, you had to play that song. I mean, you had to have it in your playlist. The Little Latin Loopy Loo. Mitch Ryder, I think, did it a lot faster, more like, it was more continuous. You know, and what we're doing here is combining a riff, and you want to, first of all, understand the count. It's like 8 quarter notes and eighth notes. So if it's always good to just hit an open string and count out loud and try to get the rhythm of the riff, which in this case is 2 measures, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, rest, rest, rest. So you're resting for 3 beats in the second of the 2 measures. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. You could count it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 but as we go faster, it's good to leave out counts. It just rolls off the tongue a lot better, and if you have a good understanding of the rhythm, you don't have to count every count. But that's what I would recommend, is more like 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And the basic riff is, and that's sort of what the bass player did in that Mitch Ryder song, version of the song. But what we're doing is adding root 5th chords. It's an E chord with just the first finger in the open string, and then the A chord just moving across the street. Okay, so if I were counting it, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. Now, another thing I'm doing that sort of adds a little bit to it, I'm cutting off that chord that in the measure with the rests, cutting the first chord short anyway. And it's like 1, 2. And how am I cutting it off? If you notice, I'm just kind of laying my fingers. It's good to be able to mute with your left hand sometimes. You know, like in Blues Boogie, you hear like, make sure you don't hit it too hard or you're going to have sounds. You know, you just really want to relax and lay the fingers down, but do it rhythmically, very deliberately. You can mute with the right hand, with the heel of the hand as well. And sometimes I do it with both, just to have total insurance that I'm going to mute the sound. So it's good to sometimes do it with both hands. You know, sometimes it feels right to do that. You know, in this case, I do it more with the left hand, and I'm just laying 3 and 4 fingers, 3 and 4 down, pretty flat. You know, I'm just kind of flopping them down on the string. So that's part of the technique. Now, The riff is very repetitious. It's kind of short, you know, so go through it at least twice. But when you get to the third line, the first measure of the third line, it doesn't start with an open string chord. It starts with a root fifth chord on the second fret. That's a B chord. That's an E chord. And then that's an A chord. The A chord does have an open string. And the bass note of the E chord is the high note of the A chord that you finish that riff with. So really that first finger just stays on the same string. A lot of people have the instinct that they got to move it over a string, and then it's wrong, you know. So on that, so anyway, you've got B chord, open string, E, open string, and then A chord. And you can cut that off with the left hand too, like that, cut it short. That's probably going to be the toughest part to get through, is the beginning of that third line, because there the riff doesn't start with an open string, so we have to refinger everything, and that's often the case with the guitar. You got the riff, basic riff's pretty easy because you got open strings, and then that you have that, it's what we call the turnaround, which is on the 5 chord of the key. And if you don't know what that means, I'm not going to get into it right now, but that's called the 5 chord. You have the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. And that's in a lot of songs. So you can look that up and maybe learn what those terms mean, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. But we're on the 5 chord, and it doesn't start with an open string, so we have to refinger the whole riff. But you can see it in the tablature, and that's what you want to make sure that you're really reading it carefully. So I'm going to, you know, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one, because it's so short, and it is a cool song. You know, it was back in the days that, like I said, when I was in a band, we had to play, we played school dances, like even middle school, or we called it junior high schools. We had dances that we played in high schools and even college fraternities. And I was about 12 years old. I was playing bass back then. And you had to do Latin Lupe Lou, man. You know, if you didn't do that, you know, people wouldn't, you know, they'd say, oh, they don't know that song, you know. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it with a capo at the 2nd fret, because I know some of you all are still using the capo at the 2nd fret. So you have it in both keys. I've got this shove capo, which really shouldn't get it out of tune too much. That's good. It's good enough for rock and roll. So I'm going to do it up a step. That's with the capo at the 2nd fret. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Again. Kind of missed a note there. Nobody was looking. You didn't notice it, did you? Anyway, it's Latin Lupe Lou. Have fun with that one.